eligible for all kinds of other stuff. He's not going to do much more time.
So you think
He's
he'll
not
get
going to
out?
do
You
much more
you think
time.
he'll get out within a year?
Oh yeah, he should. I think he'll be out within a year, 18 months at the most. I think there's a distinct possibility that he gets sentenced to something akin to time served. I mean, look.
Mark Geragos has an interesting take on the Diddy case because his daughter was one of the defense attorneys trying it. So he kind of had a little more information than a lot of people. So it was interesting to hear him on the Two Angry Man podcast with Harvey Levin actually talk about what he believes will happen with Diddy for sentencing and how Diddy might not do much jail time at all.
What a team. What a team, and meshed together. And I will tell you that Sean is, I've known him for 20 years, obviously, as you know, and through thick and through thin, and he's in a very, very good place, and thankful for the jury system. You know, we talk a lot about the jury system or fascism and democracy and things like that. I will tell you, there was a funny line during the hearing I just got out of within the last hour. And Mark Agnifilo was making a pitch for an expedited sentencing hearing and talking about, and we'll talk about this in a second, but he was saying something, and Maureen Comey, who was the prosecutor, got up and she was doing what Maureen Comey does best, which was scolding. And Mark, without missing a beat, Agnifilo said, after listening to Miss Comey, thank God there are juries. And I had to stifle a chuckle. Otherwise, the
That's
marshals
funny.
would have thrown me out of on my head.
So what you just
That's
said something
funny.
really interesting to me. So Diddy, look, he won the main charges. I mean, this was a case not really about the Mann Act. It was really about, sex trafficking and racketeering, and Diddy won and won big on that. But he still faces significant prison time. And the judge today, by denying him bail and talking about his violent nature and history, may have telegraphed that he's in some trouble. So where is his head? Is he viewing this? Is he viewing it as a victory?
It's Harvey. There's no way to spin this as anything but not only a resounding victory, but it's a slam. What's the term for a slap down? A
beat down.
An absolute resounding
victory
of the prosecution.
Oh, as Trump would say, obliterated.
Yeah, they did get obliterated. I mind you, the Mann Act and Agnifilo went through this in court. I mean, this is one of the reasons you almost wish there were cameras in the courtroom, but Agnifilo went through. I can't think of a person who the Mann Act has been applied to who is hiring the prostitutes. The Mann Act has and mind you, it was originally the White Slavery Act. And
that's true, because the Mann Act, if they do the Mann Act violation, most of the time people are on the other side of it. He's right. How many people have been charged for the Mann Act that actually were the purchasers, the procurers of S work? That's interesting.
Originally the White Slavery Act, and you want to go back in the history, over 100 years ago, it was
that's a crazy name.
The first black heavyweight
Jack Johnson,
and then famously against
Chuck
Berry. Charlie Chaplin in between, but he was acquitted, the one white guy. But there were a lot of people who said that was because he was prosecuted because of his political views. But Chuck Berry, and the Mann Act was designed for, the whole idea of it was for, I mean, there's a great history of it. If you do it, it was designed for when women were coming of age and they were going from rural to urban areas. And they didn't want people transporting them, and it was always used against people of color, famously. And
that's the problem with it. it's flawed. The law is flawed. You know, the fact that it can target these successful, wealthy black men, like coming to a city near you, your favorite celebrity could also be in the exact same position as Diddy. For flying somebody out, NFL players, basketball players, rappers, everybody's going to be under scrutiny. Actors too. If you flying women out, it's going to be a problem. There's going to have to be some control, a paper trail of consent and everything else that lets the courts know that, hey, this woman was consenting to come see me and there was no money exchange for any services. You know, that's a lot of steps to go through for most men. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man.
You're a purchaser of or patronizing a prostitute, you don't get prosecuted.
But he was
Right.
convicted, Mark. But he was convicted.
I understand, Harvey.
So what I'm really
don't-
asking
don't
is,
channel your inner prosecutor. There's no
No.
way to spin this other than
He won.
a
He won.
resounding,
Yes.
resounding victory for Diddy.
But what I'm asking you about is he's sitting in a jail cell right now, and the judge
Yeah.
denied him bail. And
But
and he could
Hold
listen.
on.
He's not going to get life, and we know that was on the line.
Oh, and by the way, the government, they filed a letter. What's the government going to ask for? They're going to ask for 50 to 60 months or something like that. The sentencing guidelines, frankly, are 20 to 27. He was acquitted. The judge denied bail, but the judge specifically said, look, I have to because they're alleging it's a crime of violence. And the defense basically conceded the violence and said,
Right. So that's interesting right there, because that is kind of what I was saying before. I think the judge felt some pressure to make the ruling of no bail right off the bat. Doesn't mean he won't give bail in the next hearing or the next hearing. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking. Pretty much I think, with the guidelines, like he said, 22 months to 27 months. I've heard even a little bit more. The state is going to ask for 50 months, which is a little excessive, right? So that's just over 4 years. But we're in the 2 to 4 year. We're in the walking out to 4 years, probably. That is the window we're in. So when Tisa tells and everybody else tells you he's going to get 10, 20 years on this, nah, it's not going to happen like that. But like I said, the max he can really put up there is 20, and then they can appeal if he tries to go above that. If the judge so feels, oh yeah, I got to really show him. But I don't think the judge is doing that. They said the judge was he was smiling and very amenable after the verdict was read. So yeah, so that indicates that an opposite feeling of what happened here when he denied the bail. I think he's trying to be fair to both sides. He has to show a strong face at this point. But yeah, let me let Mark Geragos finish what he was saying there.
I have to because they're alleging it's a crime of violence.
Right.
And the defense basically conceded the violence and said that this is a domestic violence case, except he's not being charged with domestic violence. He had
Never
a
was.
standard. The judge adhered to the standard. That doesn't mean that at sentencing, he's not going to do the right thing. I think, he's somebody who sat and watched this case. I will tell you that have you played the Doug Wigdor, Cassie's lawyers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mind-boggling the take on this case that he has. I will just tell you, the family was there, Sean was there, and everybody is breathing a collective sigh of relief.
So what do you think he'll get? You sound like you're thinking like 3-4 years.
No, I think if there's any justice, he'll get 21 months time served, something like that. Even if you were to get 36, he's
Yeah, that's right. Because you got to take out the fact that he's already been sitting in jail this whole time. He gave up his passports. He agreed to pay a bail before the trial. He actually came to New York to turn himself in, of course, though he was then raided because they wanted the dramatic moment of rushing into the hotel to actually show that he was some type of threat. Like, does this sound like a man that's not trying to work with the feds to make this thing happen? Why would he then be told, oh, he's a violent criminal, he's a violent person, we need to watch him and hold him, we need to keep him in jail any longer than is necessary? He should get time served. I'm pretty sure that that's where this is going, honestly.
eligible for all kinds of other stuff. He's not going to do much more time.
So you think
he's
he'll
not
get
gonna
out?
do much more
You think
time.
he'll get out within a year?
Oh yeah, he should. I think he'll be out within a year, 18 months at the most. I think there's a distinct possibility that he gets sentenced to something akin to time served. I mean, look, he went to New York. He flew to New York knowing he was being investigated, knowing they had executed those crazy Homeland Security raids.
Right.
He was there. He surrendered himself. Mind you, I think the prosecution's offer in this case was some crazy 27-year offer or something
Really
insane. And they spectacularly lost. And they overreached, and thank God.
Can you imagine? They basically wanted him to plead to basically a life sentence, 27 years. He's already 55. Like, that's really cold blooded. They didn't even give him a chance to, like, maybe I'll plead out. Nah.
For the jury saw right through it.
So what was the calculation for the defense in just resting, not calling any witnesses?
It was clear, I think, to most observers in the courtroom, the government hadn't made their case. The government, I'll tell you what I always say, and I was muzzled at the time and couldn't say it. When the government started investigating jurors, you know what that means. That's a telltale sign. They don't like what they're seeing.
Oh, you hear that? When they feel the need to investigate jurors, and you remember they got that one juror off, the one that had a girlfriend in New Jersey and was going to his girlfriend's house, and he lived in the Bronx, but he had a girlfriend in New Jersey. They were like, do you live in New Jersey? And then they actually removed him from the case. He's saying he knew then that the prosecution was up the creek without a paddle, that they thought they were losing at that point, and they were grasping for straws by ejecting jurors. Because you remember right after that, there was another issue with another juror, and they were like, oh, well, maybe we have to get rid of him. We should have known. We should have known. He could have been not guilty on all charges, honestly, at this point. But I think the one thing that really served them, and shout out to Mark Geragos, he's on it right now. He's been covering everything. I think he represented Michael Jackson. He was not on the OJ trial, but he was on TV a hell of a lot during that time period. And that's why I remember seeing him first. He pointed out the fact about the feds ejecting people. And basically that means that the feds knew all along that this was potentially going to happen. And the Mann Act violations, I think that was kind of a throwaway, There's been some people talking about the unconstitutionality of the Mann Act, and I think it's about time we get rid of the Mann Act in general, because it seems to be only targeted at a certain demographic. I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say who or how much they have in the bank, but those are the people that seem to face the most punishment from this Mann Act. The prosecution knew better than most of us what was about to happen because of the juror that they got out of there. They start splitting hairs and start seeing exactly what the issue is. They're starting to realize that the case is slipping away. So they're trying to maybe trim the numbers of the jurors that could potentially be in Puffy's favor. Because what happened is the juror that actually got taken out of the case was a black man that was very openly pro Diddy. but which we now see a lot of the people. I saw an interview with one of the jurors, one of the alternates, and he told me a lot of the jurors weren't even familiar with his music. So they zeroed in on the one person that actually was familiar with Diddy and was familiar with who he was, and had, you know, had maybe a different view from what the rest of the people would they would assume thought, that they picked on voir dire. You know, like when they picked the jury selection, and they picked a lot of people that didn't know anything about Diddy or his music. Let's just say that. And the one person that did, they targeted and they got him out of there. That's how this case was moving. That's the sad thing about this, is that, does that get mentioned? Does that get told in the record of how this thing went? Were they really able to, will they really be able to say that he got a fair trial on these last two charges because they got rid of that guy and he would have dissented to this Mann Act? I'm pretty sure. As a black man, I can tell you I would have dissented probably to the Mann Act because I know what it means. I know they started it to get a black man. They started it to get Jack Johnson because he was dealing with, he had a white wife that he was taking across state lines. So that's where we are with it. I think it should go away. I think there's a case for it. I heard a couple people talking about actually, you know, after, you know, also R. Kelly was found guilty of the Mann Act. So, you know, say what you want to say about the R. Kelly case and, you know, the differences between the two. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that this keeps happening. What are we going to do? We're going to wait for it to happen to Lil Wayne or Jay-Z or who else? Barack Obama? Barack Obama ain't flying nobody out, is he? Nah. But either way, man, good video. Shout out to Mark Geragos. His daughter actually comes in the interview, which is hilarious.
Jury trial is kidding you. Hold on. Come here. Come here for 1 second. Come here.
I see
Come
what's
here.
happening.
Come here.
I see what Harvey
There
is
she
Oh my
is.
God, Tenny,
No,
Tenny,
it's not
I'm not the evil
He's not
dragon,
going to
Tenny.
ask you anything, but I'm going to
Jeez.
just.
She put a gag order on her dad. She put a gag order on her dad because he was messing up the case.
I was gonna congratulate you on being pregnant. I was gonna congratulate
you.
you on winning.
And he's friends with Harvey.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
I feel great.
Was this? Did you expect this? I'm just so curious because.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm
She
dying
can't
to
talk
know.
about
I
it.
mean, this is all. I mean, Tenny, you just won a big case.
Thank you.
I'm just
Thank you.
wondering,
What a big case.
did this feel like?
Oh, he's a
this was
proud
gonna be
dad.
the
Look at him.
result?
He's so proud of her, man. Shout out to him. Shout out to them. Shout out to her for winning. She went in there and did her thing. She was definitely major part of this case.
When you went into deliberation, when you decided
All
to
right.
rest.
I love you all.
You know, advice.
This is it.
She's like, I can't talk.
Yeah,
What's the
Can't talk
state-
about it.
Hey, Why did you put a gag order on your dad? Can you answer that? She won't answer that.
I wish I could tell you the conversation last night. I will. There were two members of the team who were talking, and I can't tell you. I can't tell you my reaction, but I will just tell you I had a pretty good idea yesterday based on the jury note as to where this was headed.
Were
Oh, that's
you
interesting because we all kind of felt the opposite. We kind of felt the opposite when the jury note came out. That last jury note, everybody thought the defense team was looking a little like kind of worried or something, but I guess they knew at that point that maybe it was going in their favor. Interesting. Simone and I talked about that actually.
that the judge denied bail?
No, not in the least. I thought when if you watched what was happening and understood how there was a lot of missteps today by the prosecution, not the least of which, and I know they're mortified by it, or I would imagine they are. They came out and at one point the DOJ had put out something saying that they had gotten a conviction on sex trafficking. How embarrassing is that?
Oh, they did.
I didn't see that. They put a press release out?
Yeah, they put a
Wow.
press release out and they said that there was a conviction on counts that he was acquitted on. Was embarrassing. This was not their finest hour, and it hasn't been. And
Anyway. Anyway, you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. This is Fawcett Media.